fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Let's go racing at Silverstone Circuit, permanent home of the high downforce, high speed Formula One British Grand Prix since 1987. But tonight, the circuit will host a whole different style of racing. The iRacing official Supercar series. Week 8, live on the iRacing Esports Network and presented by SimSpeed TV. My name's Ryan Jones, and alongside me tonight, I've got David Haynes. And David, this car is a gift that just keeps on giving, isn't it? Because every single time we go out on these cars, every week we're treated to a truly special race, and tonight it should be another one. This place is a great track for passing, and we should see some great side-by-side action too.
Yeah, no doubt. Always an exciting car to see them battle bumper to bumper, wheel to wheel. It's proper touring car stuff. The drivers are always very close, and this is a fantastic circuit as well. Silverstone Circuit, pretty recently added to iRacing, so it looks great. It's very modern, and I think it's a pretty reasonable combination. Should give us some great racing tonight.
Certainly should, and we've got a 27-lap race ahead of us tonight, which means we're going to have to make one pit stop today. Unlike last time out, tank restricted to 70%, that's 78.4 litres. Pit window somewhere between lap 11 to lap 16. If you want to save a bit of fuel, get a bit of traffic early on, you could gamble the lap 10 pit stop. And you'd have to be careful that feeling over there when you reach the end of the race. You wouldn't want to run out on that final lap. Track temp is pretty cool out there. Only 23 degrees. So a lot of grip out there for these drivers, which will aid the racing today and make things a little bit easier for guys that maybe haven't driven this track quite so much. And we're looking at some qualifying times now, though. And out front is James Scott, 2:02.893. So he's got a little over a tenth of a second over the field. Wayne Burke, the closest competitor there, in second place, and James Scott's just pulled off, and he'll attempt to go back out for a second lap, I think. Brenton Hobson's back here in 5th place at the moment, and he's making his way through Maggots and Beckett's now, David.
Exactly, the drivers get just 2 laps for this qualifying, so the first one tends to often be a little bit conservative, sometimes a bit of a banker lap, and they go all out on the second lap. But if you go all 4 wheels off the track at any point around this rather lengthy full Grand Prix circuit, and that would invalidate your lap. So there's a few drivers that are going to need to improve on their second lap, but they can't push it too hard for risk of that lap not counting or them making an error.
Yes, certainly. Let's see if Brenton Hobson can get through this final section cleanly, making his way into Vale, and then flick it back to the right, get it through Club, get on the power nice and early, but don't run wide and get yourself an off track here. Use as much curve as you can, and then coming out of the corner, what's Hobson going to do? It's a 2:02.359 or 3:60, so he doesn't improve. He stays in 5th place, but finds himself now 200ths clear of 6th place driver. As we look back, see who else is on lap. This looks like Steve Jansen, and it is. He's making his way through the final part of the track as well, through Club, and it looking like a 2:04, maybe a 2:05 from Jansen, 2:04.694. So Jansen pops up and into 20th place. Tyler Blackburn is on a lap. He's only half around the circuit, though. He's making his way into Maggots, and a couple of racing Oz cars out there today. Tyler Blackburn, Hayden Veld. I think that's a record for racing Oz and top split. A little bit biased there, David, I won't lie.
Yeah, we've all got biases a little bit. try to leave them at the door when we come into the commentary box, but it's not always entirely possible. But yeah, indeed. So lap times just over 2 minutes, and when you got to do an out lap and then 2 flying laps, and they're each over 2 minutes, we are going to see some drivers just complete some of their laps right at the final seconds of this session, and one of them's probably going to be Tyler Blackburn here within 30 seconds of the end of this qualifying session. He's got one more corner to come through, see if he can improve from that time. Just keeps it within the margins of those white lines there.
It's pretty much matched his first lap time there. 204.12 first time by. 204.16 for his second lap, so he doesn't improve, stays 13th. Just out of teammate Hayden Veld. Ashley Ruskin's back in 24th place, second from the back at the moment. Can he find any sort of improvement? And he's going to come across on the 204.69, props up one spot into 23rd place, move himself clear of Michael Rosenblatt there, as that is qualifying done and dusted here at Silverstone. Let's go through the grid for today's race. James Scott is on pole position. Wayne Burke outside, row 1. Sean Thompson and Brian Borg make up the second row of the grid. Brenton Hobson and Damian Johnstone in behind them. Then it's John Emerson and Thomas Hinds.
Next row is going to be 9th place. It's Brad Newman. He's going to be alongside Michael Talyancic. And Ben Christensen is on row 6 with Kane Hewson. Row 7 in 13th place says Tyler Blackburn and Hayden Veld. And then we've got Claire Mason and Craig Jones to make up 15th and 16th.
17th place going to be Damon Mulqueen, and Greg Sharp is on row 9 alongside him. Mihail Latishoff on row 10 with Braden Nash, Steve Jansen, and Aidan Luthwaite, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, occupied by Ashley Ruskin, Michael Rosenblatt, and the field rounded out by Daniel Cheney there. So 25 cars for today's race. 25 cars, 27 laps if you're starting from the back. Still time to make your way to the front. Some great opportunities for passing on this track. Great opportunities for side-by-side racing as well. And certainly opportunities to get things done. Not usually a track where we see big trains of cars stuck without making an overtake, like maybe on a street circuit you would see. Probably the best example, the most extreme example, Detroit Belial, which is where we're headed in a couple of weeks' time, in fact, for this series. That'll be a very different race, won't it, David?
Yeah, with the walls a lot closer around there, the track a bit narrower, a little bit more caution required here. I think drivers can really try and push the limits, and there's quite some nice paved runoff areas if you have to take them. Of course, you'd rather not, but if you're going wheel to wheel, probably better to go off the course than to accrue some damage or risk going for a spin. All the cars just about lined up on the grid now, 25 of them. Let's get ready.
Here we go, the revs rise. Let's look towards turn 1. They're being held for quite some time on the grid. Now the green flag flies, and we're racing, and a pretty even start for the top 3, top 4 drivers. And they might just single file themselves out through the first corner, as look to the outside is Sean Thompson there from 4th place on the grid. Doesn't quite get it done on Wayne Burke, who's right in behind James Scott, who goes a bit defensive into turn 1. A big pack of cars now going side by side down into turn number 3. And no big incidents, or no incidents at all through most of the field. So a pretty clean start all the way up and down. First side by side bit of action here is back here with Tyler Blackburn and John Emerson. Emerson slots in behind him up front. James Scott has kept that lead away from Wayne Burke and leads them by a couple of tenths of a second now, leading themselves down into Luffield.
All pretty clean and single file stuff up the front. John Emerson, though, got a horrible start. He's down 5 positions from where he started. I think I caught that from a chopper view at the start. He just bogged down, didn't get going, lost a couple spots there, and then once he was out of sequence and falling back, he just kept getting swallowed up by a couple more cars. So he's got to get head down and get amongst it. Bit of an error here we've just seen, though, from, was that Hobson?
It was Hobson, and now Hobson's under pressure from Damian Johnstone into Maggots, and behind them as well as Thomas Hinds. Hobson holds him off. Hinsey trying to find a way through on Johnstone, but this is one part of the track where you really can't make an overtake. But you can set yourself up here through Beckett's and into Chapel for a run down the Hanger Straight and into Stowe. And that looks like a slowdown for Damian Johnstone. He jumps on the brakes, and Hinds goes by him, and now trying to break the draft of Michael Talyancic, weaving down the Hanger Straight. Talyancic trying to force his way up the inside of the Stowe. Maybe gives him a bit of a touch there through the corner. Gets an overlap. He's on the wrong side of the track for Vale. Switches to the inside, but very late on the brakes is Thomas Hinds. And look at this around the outside. Brad Newman. That was opportunistic, and he might just get this done through club, and he will. So Newman moves up a spot, and all that aggressive attacking from Taliantic, which in fact cost him 1 place.
Yeah, fantastic awareness there. Great car placement. It's got him a spot, but now he's going to have to defend it into turn 1 as they both are as brave as they can be onto the brakes. That was about to be a very, very hairy incident, but both of them will survive that. Damien Johnston.
Oh no, that's going to be trouble. Blackburn misses his braking marker and drop punts Michael Taliantic off stage left, and Blackburn's going to pull that car over with a lot of damage to the rear and the front. Let's get a replay up of what's just unfolded there on the way through and into turn 3. You can see they're right out on the curb, really wide through 2, and just sort of couldn't get that car pulled up straight through the corner, and that's probably on Tyler, that one. So you'll be disappointed with yourself for that mistake. And here's the onboard from Taliantic looking back, all looking fine, and then suddenly out of nowhere, whack.
Yeah, big crunch, unfortunate there. Just sort of run out of talent just a tiny bit. But of course, when you're racing wheel to wheel like that, the tiniest of mistakes can have big consequences, like we've just seen.
Certainly can, and this is a spot where side-by-side isn't very much looked upon with a great view, because it can result in those big consequences. Kane Hewson is a part of this pack, is in front of them side by side, making contact. Claire Mason and Ben Christensen. And who else is involved in this? It looks like Hayden Veld and Craig Jones. Damien Johnstone is back here with these guys after being involved in some first lap shenanigans too, and getting that slowdown, falling down. Johnstone on the inside of Veld. He's got Claire Mason just in front of him, trying to find a way by Craig Jones. And Johnstone trying to get to the inside of Mason, who squeezes Johnstone down to the apex. And great job there from the driver of the number 4 car not to make contact as they make their way into Vale, and they sort themselves out for now. Side by side behind them though, that looks like Damon Mulqueen, and he's on the wrong side of the track for Club up against Braden Nash.
Yeah, this middle pack is absolutely crazy. Off-roading adventure there for Claire Mason, going to lose quite a few positions. Shortcutting the way through Club, there might also be a slowdown in that as well.
Yeah, I think you find there probably will be. Out front, the gap has pretty much remained stagnant at half a second between James Scott and Wayne Burke, so no moves likely to be made in the next couple of corners, at least between them. It's a second and a half back to third place, Sean Thompson. Fourth place is Brian Borg, who's shadowing Thompson by about a second, half a second as well. Similar gap that the leaders have over each other. 5th, 6th, all isolated, 7th and 8th, pretty far apart. And then we have this battle pack of 9th, 10th on backwards. And Craig Jones, if you look a little bit further back, almost right up into the back of Ben Christensen on the way down into the Brooklands corner. Lost the rear end, almost went straight into the back of him.
Yeah, this is a great battle over 9th and 10th, and right behind them is Damien Johnstone, who's had an absolute yo-yo of a race. Got a reasonable start, lost 10 positions from that slowdown on lap 1 that we saw, and has now gained 5 since then, with all of the argy-bargy and the issues we've seen in this pack. So if you get your head down and keep out of trouble, you can definitely recover from a lap 1 issue like that.
Certainly can. Another big mover early on is Stevie Anson. He's come up 8 spots out of Braden Nash, who's up 6. So those guys have done well in the early running to get themselves out of some of the early trouble and pick up some spots in the processes. As Wayne Burke looks like he's I thought he had gained there on James Scott, but again, it's that live timing tells us it's about 6 tenths per second. The gap out front, as most of the field has sort of spread themselves just a little bit thin at the moment. No huge packs of really close cars. Still that midfield fight, of course, though, which maybe just closing itself up a little bit through the latter part of the track now. And the drivers have got to settle in because they have 27 laps ahead of them, or 23 still to go. They got to start thinking about that fuel number 2. You can put on lap 9 if you're incredibly good at fuel saving and incredibly desperate to try something different. But I don't think it's particularly likely. That was a move we almost saw from Damien Johnstone, shadowing a move to the inside of Craig Jones, maybe preparing herself for one next lap, or seeing whether it's possible from that far back, but he certainly wasn't close enough for that time by. It'll have a double draft down Wellington Straight off that Jones car and off Christensen as well now. So let's see how this one plays out. 3 cars here scrapping over 9th place.
Yeah, this one's definitely forming up to be our best battle, except for the pointy end of the field. And you can see Johnstone, obviously with good pace and that mistake on the first lap, now trying to pick them off one by one. It's a great exit out of Brooklands, I must say, down the old pit straight. It's definitely going to close up on Craig Jones a little more this time as well.
Certainly is. These guys have pulled a little bit of a gap back to the next car in line, 12th place Hayden Veld. Johnston's got a bit of a run here as well. You can see off the back of Brent Christensen just running a slightly different line through that corner. And now into Maggots and Beckett's. He'll try and set up a line and a run that gives him a great exit out through Chapel and onto the Hangar Straight. But he's made a bit of a butchery over that sequence of corners. And Craig Jones, maybe less of a butchery for Johnstone, more of a great run for Craig Jones, because he closed up onto the back of Ben Christensen through there. Is he close enough for a move down into Stowe? Certainly thinks about it and shows the nose. Pinch the rears there, trying to get that car stopped without running into the back of the number 19 car. No moves being made there. Into Vale once more. We're about to hit lap 5 of this race, so coming up on what would be a quarter distance. That ain't right. A 5th race distance. Not quite at a quarter.
Yes, Jones made a bit of a butchery of Cop's corner on this this lap just gone, but then found such a good run through Maggots and Beckett. So it's looking like a car might be just a little bit pointy, but not particularly stable for Craig Jones. It's quick when he gets the line right, but it's finding it hard to be consistent and also in a bit of sandwich.
Big lunge at the loop up the inside, but watching a replay of Kane Hewson, Team Hyperdrive further back, looks like he's making his way through Chapel. He's got potentially Greg Sharp behind him. Not as right livery Greg Sharp runs, and he has a slow down there, so that's an issue for Kane Hewson. Gonna put him a little bit further back, and that was a little bit awkward through the Brooklands corner. Damien Johnstone and Craig Jones both struggling to pull that car up, and Ben Christensen will be loving that because it's just relieved the pressure off him. Look how much of the inside that Craig Jones took through Woodcote there. Clearly no slowdowns to be had on the inside of that apex, and does lend itself to a bit of an abnormal line.
Yeah, you're exactly right that Christensen will be loving seeing these two battle in the mirrors behind him, because Jones was really putting the pressure on until Damien Johnston got here, and now suddenly Craig Jones is having to take some slightly defensive lines and think about that Gone Rogue Motorsports car behind. And again, they're all taking just slightly different lines onto the Wellington Straight. I think that's the one corner that Craig Jones has really got the exit hooked up, but he's not as close as he was last time, and they're going for a bit of a battle behind. That looks like Steve Jansen's going to try and put the move on Hayden Veld as well. Didn't quite get it done, but definitely showed the nose there. And Stowe's a funny little corner because the inside's sort of slightly off camber.
Yeah, it is. I found that out the hard way battling someone a couple days back, months back. But look at this. Jansen's got the move done at Club. Veldron's right off the track, and here comes Braden Nash trying to make it a 2-for-1 move here. And into turn 1. Careful side by side through the first corner, and then into turns 2 and 3, which Farm and Village. Jansen now on the inside of Nash, but too far back to make a move stick, and fantastic bit of driving there from Braden Nash to make that one stick. In front of them, Craig Jones is pushing Ben Christensen through Adcott, and now trying to cover off from Damien Johnstone. This is a replay of second place Wayne Burke. The gap has come out to 2.9 seconds, and he's made a mistake somewhere. This surely is it. Into Stowe. And I think he had a slowdown, which is a story we've seen plenty of times there. The inside of the Chapel corner proving very troublesome for these guys to stay within the racing limits, as the battle for 10th place, or 9th place, I should say, is really heating up, with Ben Christensen coming under all sorts now from Craig Jones, who's finding a bit of form now through the rest of the circuit, and gets into the back of Ben Christensen. And Jones goes off spinning to the left-hand side through Cops. Christensen's going to lose out to Damien Johnstone too. And that was very messy from Craig Jones. I'm not sure whether Christensen braked too early or Jones braked too late. But either way, the result is the same. Two cars that are battling hard now find themselves at least one spot worse off. This is how it looks from the onboard of Jones's car, David.
Yeah, so we'll get an idea from this, but certainly Cops was a corner that Craig Jones was really struggling with. And I don't know, is he just unsighted behind there? Because the difference in the braking points was just so huge there. Craig Jones was really not expecting that whatsoever. And, gives him a tap, then he goes around as well and reverses a long way into the gravel as well. Christensen probably won't be happy with that, but I think he's, gotten away with only losing one spot. Jones has plummeted down the order there.
He has. He's found himself all the way down now in 21st place. So all that work he made and all that ground he made off the start has gone begging now. And that means that everyone else gets elevated up one spot, including these drivers, Nash, Janssen, and Veld, still battling over this 11th place spot. Nash got by both of them through Cops and through Village, but has not been able to really pull out from these two drivers. So the Giraffe may be keeping these guys in touch. Certainly now as Wellington straight, it'll be very evident, and down the Hangar straight too, the two biggest straights on this racetrack, providing a lot of opportunities to stick in the draft of the car in front, maybe even save a bit of fuel utilising that draft, but certainly it keeps drivers a little bit closer than they'd potentially like.
Yeah, big wiggle from Nash coming out onto the Wellington straight there, lighting up the tyres a little bit, and that'll be one of the concerns if you're one of the drivers who think you're going to push this stint a little bit longer than some others, is what kind of tyres are you going to have left at the end of this stint? What are they going to be like? If you're lighting them up like that, having a bit of a wiggle, putting lots of slip angle and lots of throttle into them. Stig Janssen, I think he was maybe a tiny bit bottled up behind Hayden Veld earlier. That's what let Braden Nash get through. Janssen might fancy himself as faster than Nash, but it was just opportunistic racecraft from Braden Nash that got him that 9th position in the first place. Certainly there's not a lot to separate these three guys right now. Just got to be careful how much you cut out of some of those apexes, boys. We've seen a few people pick up slowdowns here. I hope none of them got one this time.
Doesn't look like it. This is the sort of battles that experience plays a big part in. Janssen is someone I've seen on a regular now on the Monday night top split races here for the iRacing official Supercar series. Braden Nash as well, I've seen make a few appearances as well. Hayden Veld, on the contrary, I think this is his first appearance, so as we can see there, a mistake onto the brakes, almost into the back of Janssen, had to dive down to the inside. And this is probably why we're seeing Veld at the back of this little pack as well, because he doesn't quite have that racecraft experience in this car. But let's go back to the front though, because Wayne Burke is, after making that mistake, coming under pressure now from Sean Thompson, who definitely looks like he's got the pace over Burke last time by 0.3 of a second quicker. And in fact, Brian Borg in 5th place, or 4th place behind them, was a 10th quicker than Wayne Burke as well. So we could see Burke start to become the cork in the bottle for a couple drivers here, David.
Yeah, Burke's a little bit rattled, he was running at the same pace as our leader, and then he had that slowdown that dropped him back a couple of seconds, and since that's reunited him with Sean Thompson, it just has not let go, and he's maybe coming under a little bit more pressure and just not driving as cleanly because Thompson is now suddenly putting the pressure on Wayne Burke.
Certainly is. He might be in range for a move into Stowe Corner if he can get a good run through Maggots and Beckett's here. A fantastic piece of racetrack. Combination of left, back to the right, and all through that time you're trying to use as much throttle as you can. You're trying to get the car slowed down at some point. You can pick the throttle up into certain other aspects of that complex and definitely pick up the throttle as early as you can, making your way out of Beckett's and into Chapel, because you want to get a good run down the straight. A bad exit, as we know, onto a straight means you're going to lose out all the way down to the next corner, which is all the way up here. And actually uphill is Stowe a little bit off the Hangar straight, so that compromises your run even more if you don't get that good exit.
Again, Stowe is just a funny little corner there with a odd little bit of camber in it, and so you can really go side by side through there, and you can defend around the outside pretty well as well. So it's an interesting overtaking opportunity. We might see some moves get done there, but a lot of it really looks like it's being done on the way into some of these slower corners, even like Farm and the Loop that just come up in this sector early in the lap.
Yeah, that certainly is the case. Ooh, that was a little bit wide there from the third place man in that train, Brian Borg, fourth place overall. This battle is 4 seconds off the lead of James Scott, who's looking very comfortable out front. His lap times still looking pretty solid as well at 2.36 seconds a lap. Wow, 2 minute 0.36 seconds a lap is further back. Not quite going that fast because they're battling Janssen and Nash. Janssen trying to get the move done. And just in behind them, Adam Luthwaite is slowly catching them as well. So if they don't sort themselves out, they're going to find this becomes a four-way train. Luthwaite catching by about 3 or so tenths. As here goes Janssen down to the inside for Brooklyn. Nash is on the outside. If he can stay there, he's got the inside for Luffield. But he can't stay there. And Janssen goes to the head of this train for the first time, despite finding his way by Veld earlier. And now, let's see if Janssen can pull away, or if Nash will be a bit quicker with that draft. I know there's a funny thing sometimes. I know I have this sort of issue. When you're following a car, you sometimes find you go a bit quicker than you would when you got no one in front of you to sort of chase. I like that challenge of chasing someone, and it pushes me to go faster. If I was in Janssen's position right now, I think I might find I was going a bit slower. So we'll see if Braden Nash suffers that same bit of a issue that I certainly seem to find.
Yeah, the leading car can sometimes just struggle to be more consistent. So the car following behind can take their regular reference points and also read how it's going for the car in front. Janssen is not getting away from his pack. He's still got Nash right there. Hayden Veld got a pretty good run as well, and you can see Aiden Luthwaite and Damon Mulqueen in the background. Mulqueen can be pretty quick on the right occasion. And as I say this, a move getting done here. Greg Sharp's going to try and go to the inside of Claire Mason. They're going to be side by side through Stowe. Then Mason is then going to have the inside for the next corner.
Yep, and Mason will use that to their advantage. Down the inside through Vale, Greg Sharp will have to wait at least another few corners to get that move done, and settles back into 17th place. This is a battle quite a way off lead of the race. Oh, look at this, side by side through turn one for the second time. Janssen and Nash, and now Veld wants a piece of it too, to the inside, but the wrong side of the track for Village. Nash down to the inside, makes contact with Janssen, spins down to the inside. Veld didn't quite see him, threw him at the last minute, had to check up. Luthwaite had to check up too. Now Veld's on the outside for the loop, and will have to duck back in line very quickly because Luthwaite's there. Al Mulqueen is there too, and kudos to Hayden Veld and Adam Luthwaite for checking up, because that could have been a much bigger crash had they not done so in time.
Yeah, I thought we were going to see a repeat of the incident we saw earlier in this race, but no cars ended up flipping or on their lid. Everyone's carried on. Steve Janssen is so lucky to still be at the head of this train, but it has allowed Luthwaite and Mulqueen to close in on the picture. Words get a replay from the aerial shot, and that'll tell us how this somehow didn't end in disaster. A lot of that was on Veld realizing the way that the out-of-control car of Nash was going to rejoin.
Yeah, I know Phil, I know Hayden uses VR too, so he would have been able to look over to the right-hand side of his, and see that car of Braden Nash spearing back onto the track, and would have been in his peripherals as well, so good job for him there. But now they have their work cut out, because Nash was looking to get aggressive on Janssen, so he might just have that pace back in behind Janssen now. But the issue they have is they've let 2 more cars onto the back of this train, and Claire Mason and Greg Sharp, they're not too far off as well. You can just see them on the left-hand side of the shot there. So this could very easily turn into about a half a dozen car train in the blink of an eye, maybe even more, as they make their way through Stowe. Nash is struggling now, and maybe he's proving to be the cork on the bottle on this lap as Veld late on the brakes into the back, and Nash gives him a shot, and Nash slides his way through Vale. Veld redressed the position, cost himself a spot in the process, going to cost himself to Mulqueen too. These two are good mates, and they race each other hard as Mulqueen gets around the outside of Hayden Veld through Club, and now Claire Mason's there as well. Won't want to lose out 3 spots as a result of that move, and just struggling now from that inexperience, and it's starting to show as the tyres wear. He might want to be one of those guys that dives down here on lap 11, because that pit window is open from the end of this lap, and wouldn't surprise me to see a lot of the drivers in this battle pack dive down into the lane, get themselves out of this group and into some fresh air, as Braden Nash now has what appears to be his teammate in Adam Luthwaite tucked right up in behind him down the Wellington straight, or at least I'm seeing the same livery. Slightly different liveries here on the broadcast, but official road registration, of course. So, future you might happen to watch this race, go sort out a team for us here, and tell us what team you're in, because I think they might be teammates there, David.
I think they should definitely go to simspeed.tv, register, and upload all of their paints. So that would help us and them. Looking further up the order, because Borg is coming under pressure from Hobson. But to your point earlier about this battle here, Nash, Luthwaite, Mulqueen, all of these cars all stacked together, that pit window is open now. And if you're someone at the end of this train getting held up, if you get a new set of tyres, it's a long lap here. The undercut would be very, very powerful. If you can put in some quick laps early in that stint and then look after those tyres to the end, you could definitely grab a whole bunch of positions from an undercut if you're one of the cars in this train.
Yes, well, the guys in this battle pack are lapping about a second and a half off on their lap times. With all this battling and close racing they're having here, and when they're making mistakes like they had on that big cluster they had on that last lap, they cost themselves about 2 seconds too. So a pit stop would definitely be vital to these guys. Damien Johnstone, further up the order, has decided to come down into the lane. None of the guys I thought were going to pit have pitted, although Greg Sharps used his experience to dive down into the lane, maybe recognizing he was slowly catching those guys and wanted to pull down onto the lane before that actually occurred. Brian Borg is coming under pressure from Brenton Hobson now, who's in 5th place and was 8 tenths quicker than Borg last time by. Hobson's lapping the low 204s, whereas bro, I think Borg may have made a mistake last lap because he's lapping that same pace, but only a 205.0 last time by.
And as cold as the track temperatures are, these guys are really starting to struggle with those tyres. Contact between the two of them. There must be a technical problem there for Brian Borg, because he's really checked up on the exit of the corner, and he's parked the car off the road. You see the replay again. It was not a spin or a mistake from Borg. He's just checked the car up and tried to park it. And unfortunately for Hobson, he's picked the wrong side to try and pass that stricken car.
Nothing Hobson could do there. I think Borg made the wrong decision there. Whatever issue he's got on which side of the track to go is on the inside. Should have kept going to that left-hand side, and instead drove across the track to try and pull himself away and off the racing line. And unfortunately, contact was made with Brenton Hobson. So Borg, we suspect, will probably be out of the race if that is a technical issue for him. As this leaves Wayne Burke now and Sean Thompson under very little pressure, because Borg is now about 2+ seconds behind him. And Borg's still going, actually. And he's fallen back to 20th place. He's kept going. Cut across the track, but he's going very slowly. So I'll keep an eye on that one as we watch Wayne Burke and Sean Thompson dive down into pit lane. Our race leader, James Scott, did not do such. So these two could very much undercut that car of James Scott if he stays out there for another 4 or 5 laps. Although I do believe that the pit window only is to about lap 16 as Mulqueen goes very wide through Stowe. This might allow Velt the opportunity to get the spot back. They lost a few laps ago. They'll go side by side into Vale, but Mulqueen later on the brakes. Then the number 25 keeps the spot for now. This battle is for 14th place at Mulqueen's in, 13th, 12th of Luthwaite and Nash just up in front of them. Luthwaite's actually got ahead of Braden Nash while we were watching some of the action up front. So those two have exchanged places. Now Luthwaite want to try and chase down Steve Jansen, who has pulled out a bit of a gap through all of this battling behind him and has about 3 seconds over Luthwaite. So he'll be loving that. But the most energized battle now is this one for 14th. Mulqueen doesn't look like he's got that outright pace and holding up Veld and maybe even Claire Mason too.
I'm kind of surprised that some of these haven't jumped into the pit lane, but we might see them soon. I guess we're still just before the halfway point in the race. It is a little bit early, but if track position is king, then you want to get that undercut, and it makes sense to come in a little bit earlier. Here is a replay. We're looking at Ashley Ruskin, and this is in the first sector, these two long, slow corners, and just gets helped around a little bit. Wayne Burke would have been much faster on those new tyres at that point. Has maybe slightly misjudged the closing speeds there. Wasn't a huge hit, but it has sent Ruskin around.
It has. That's unfortunate for Ruskin. These guys are slowly being elevated further and further up the order as drivers in front of them peel off into pit lane. As James Scott now is another driver that's decided to pit, probably recognising that Wayne Burke, Sean Thompson, although 4 seconds plus back, had pitted and were going to start closing out on him if he didn't do so in reaction. Thomas Hinz dives down from what was second place as well. John Emerson has carried on the track, so he'll assume the lead of the race for what is the first time, I think, in quite some time at least, for that driver in the official Strength of Field Monday night series here. So kudos to him. A bit of a screen time up front as into the lane dives Claire Mason from that train of cars, leaving Mulqueen and Veld to themselves. Veld got by Mulqueen. We missed that. Oh, what is that happening further back? Craig Jones just straight line that corner, it seems. Or there was some awkward contact that leading up to that. Let's take a replay of that. I don't think we got the whole picture there. This is on board with Craig Jones making the way through. This is Chapel onto the hangar straight. The car in front of him, can't quite see who that is, but it's looking like he's going to get a run. It's Ashley Ruskin, so down to the inside, about a car's width there, and I don't think Jones had enough braking force on that car to get that car slowed down. Maybe broke a little bit too late, and I think maybe got a bit of the grass on the inside too, and he did. So that wouldn't have helped his efforts to turn that car and led to a rather awkward incident between Jones and Ashley Ruskin. Look at this side by side. Kane Hewson and Wayne Burke will sweep around the outside. That's James Scott. What has happened there? I got caught between wow and what there. 3.5 second longer stop for James Scott. Cost himself a lot of time. Add in the undercut for Wayne Burke, and that has allowed Burke to close right up behind him. Well, now I'm thinking, was Burke fuel saving in that first stint? Because I wouldn't have expected Burke to be 4 seconds off him at the end of the first stint, but that's what he was. And he's now right up behind James Scott, looking to the outside, but you can't overtake through Maggots. You can't really overtake through Beckett's, but he's pushing and he's looking for a way through. You can't find any room there. There's no way through until he gets his way up to Stowe with a good exit. Scott had a bit of a wiggle trying to get his way down onto Chapel, and now he's going to be under all sorts of pressure. He's going to have to drive that car down the right-hand side of the track on the white line. Burke goes to the inside, goes back to the outside for the corner, trying to set himself up for a good run through Stowe. He's so much quicker than Scott at the moment. He's just trying to get those tyres up to temperature, and now to the inside of Vale potentially. No, he can't find room there either, and Scott's doing just enough right now to hold off Wayne Burke.
And thankfully for these guys, quite a few of the cars in front of them have dived into the pit lane, so they're not going to have to worry about working their way through quite as many cars that hadn't pitted. This is Wayne Burke's fantastic opportunity to strike if he wants to take the race win, but he had a bit of a moment coming onto the pit straight that time. The pressure is good, but it's getting to him as well.
It is, and we just heard from Brian Borg as to his strange issue earlier on a couple laps ago. A VR failure for him, so that doesn't aid matters when you can't exactly see where you're driving, so that's unfortunate, and probably explains why he had to start to go to the right-hand side of the track too. He might not have quite known where he was on the racetrack, so really unfortunate for Borg, and I'm sure, who was it? Brenton Hobson would understand too once he finds out the reasons behind that incident. James Scott's just pulled out now. The gap's about 0.3 of a second to Wayne Burke. Further back, it looks like that big battle pack made their pit stops too of Janssen and co. That is Janssen there in 13th place now. So he has pitted and he's come out behind Greg Sharp. So Sharp, who we saw dive down further than anyone else in that pack, has jumped out ahead of Janssen, who himself was about a second clear of the big battling group. So great pit stop for him. And the only driver yet to make their stop is actually... We've got a couple drivers.
Emerson, Luthwaite, and Hayden Veld are only 3 drivers yet to pit. And John Emerson's the leading of those 3. And as you can see, into the rather unique pit entry here, that pit lane speed limit starts a little bit early. So it's quite a long trundle down the lane.
Certainly is. I'm just looking at the lap times of these drivers, and Luthwaite and Veld have both found a lot of time staying out on track compared to what they were doing in that battle group. So this could very well work out for them. They'll have fresher tyres. They certainly will be contending for the lead of the race, though, because Scott and Burke are going by them now, and Burke has closed back up since we last cut away from them, and he's all over the back of James Scott again. This could be a great battle, or it should be a great battle for the lead. They're now in the lead of the race, on track position 2, not just provisionally. So it's Evolution Racing Team against DPR, Ben Max, making the way through the first part of the track, and Burke's got to try and set himself up. We know that James Scott is very good at racing these V8 supercars around every type of track. He's been up the front consistently in this series, as has Wayne Burke when he's turned up. So these are two very much... these are two very good operators, and I'll explain. I was going to call them benchmark operators, but I know Jay's going to kill me. He probably still will now, so sorry, Jay.
So the field is cleansed, as they say. And by they, I mean us. So these two coming out of the pit lane right together, Aiden Luthwaite and Hayden Veld, in the same order as they went into the pit lane. What they are going to have is they're going to come out right near some of these other battling drivers there. And they're going to have the fresher tyres coming towards the end. Braden Nash pitted a lap ago, and Greg Sharp at the lead of this train. His tyres are now 4 laps old, so some of these guys behind definitely going to be able to come back at him as well. But Sharp made hay while the sun shines, and he's 5 seconds up the road.
He has great strategy there for Greg Sharp as Janssen went very wide through Luffield, and now Scott and Burke are making their way out of Chapel and onto the Honger. Oh, I can't get my words out today. Hanger straight. And he's just close enough to be able to get some of that slipstream down the Hanger straight and into that intriguing and off-putting Stowe corner. Very long corner too. It's tricky to get your acceleration point right and make your way down into Vale. And Burke's there. It's going to be interesting to see whether he's just saving a bit of the tyre life for later on in the race.
He might still have to save fuel.
Yeah, maybe saving a bit of fuel as well with that 3.5 seconds shorter pit stop. Or whether at the moment this is true pace between Scott and Burke. One mistake though for James Scott, and Burke is going to be all over him and potentially even ahead of him. So it's high pressure stuff right now for these two.
Scott and Burke really does sound like an adventurer duo that would have been the first to reach the South Pole or something, but in this case they're just putting on some fantastic racing for us. And if you imagine the situation that Burke was in when he was a couple seconds off the lead, he really had nothing to lose from playing it risky on his fuel number, hoping he'd come out near James Scott and then either being able to pass him and get into the lead, or, you know, save that fuel and end up with second place anyway. So I think Burke's probably taken the gamble on that fuel number, and so he might still need to save a little bit. It's sort of a nothing ventured, nothing gained situation for him when he had a little bit of a no man's land for second place.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and would certainly be the most likely scenario. I don't think Scott would have overfueled that car by very much, if at all. So I'd say Burke's probably a little bit shorter here on fuel than most of the drivers in the field. Third place, Sean Thompson's all by himself, though. Just see him enter the shot there at the back of screen. 3.1 seconds adrift. He is in range, though, if these two went side by side for a few corners to be able to close up. He's got Brenton Hobson behind him. Thomas Hins there on screen in 5th place. And then a little ways back to 6th place, Brad Newman, who's 15 seconds off. And then this battle between Damian Johnstone and John Emerson for 7th place. Emerson led laps in this race and is still on track for a great top 10 result here. So he's having a great race, is John Emerson, and is right up in behind Johnstone. We should go back to this one for Johnstone. These leaders won't make a move into turn 1 because Johnstone's going to go right to the inside and try to cover off. John Emerson is looking around the outside at Stowe, and he's going to have the exit if he can keep that power down. He does get the exit, and he'll get to the inside for Vale and should complete this move. That was a beautifully executed move for Emerson. Just park on the apex here, don't let him cross you over, and he's done so. Great stuff there for Emerson to take 7th place away.
Yeah, Johnstone was one of the first cars to jump into the pit lane, and Emerson, as we remember, was one of the last. 5 laps difference in the tyres there, and it really shows as John Emerson's now working his way back up through the field with the freshest tyres of anyone in the field. I had a look up and down my timing screen, and of all of our 25 cars, Wayne Burke was the driver with the shortest pit stop. So he must be kind of confident in that fuel number, but obviously no one else was any braver than he. And that is exactly how he found a lot of that time to be in this lead battle. Here's another one, Greg Sharp. with those tyres that are 3 laps older than Steve Jansen and Tyler Blackburn. This looks like that car is not as pretty as it could have been.
Yeah, we saw Blackburn make that rather elementary mistake earlier on and damage to the front, damage to the back of that car. Don't believe he's made a pit stop in this race. This will be his first stop of the day. He stretched that tank a long way, jeez. Which will be disappointing for him, knowing how long he stretched that tank. With could have gone for a big overcut on the guys he was racing. If he was further up the field though is James Scott and Burke, and still nothing separates them. Burke was a tenth quicker last time by, and I feel like it really looks like he's just managing his time right now, because we're seeing on a number of occasions Burke closing right up to the rear bumper of that Evolution Racing Team machine in front of him. And then we look back now and he's a couple car lengths off the back of him. And again, it could be that fuel saving down the straights. He's saving a bit of fuel in the slipstream. In the corners, he's using up all of his speed. And into Vale, he gained about 2 or 3 car lengths in the braking zone. Locked up the front left, but got it turned too. And it looks like he's pretty strong through Vale.
Yeah, good exit from Club too. So he's definitely there and thereabouts in the slipstream. You were trying to do your fractions earlier. We've now completed exactly 2/3 of the race distance. So it's just in this last 1/3 where Wayne Burke needs to find something to put the pressure on James Scott, who so far has looked relatively unflappable, and we know definitely doesn't need to do any lifting and coasting or any short shifting. He can use all of those revs and all of the throttle, but he is still under pressure from Burke. Fantastic battles deeper in the field as well, and this is one that we had in the early laps. We've had the pit stops, and now the gang is back together, and it's just as exciting viewing.
And it's Nash from Luthwaite. Or it's Luthwaite from Nash from Veld. It was Nash from Luthwaite before the pit stops, before Luthwaite got by him. But he pitted earlier, so now Nash has got the fresher tyres, as does the Racing Oz car behind him. So expect Luthwaite to be under a bit of pressure, as almost half the track away from them is James Scott and Wayne Burke making their way through Copse. And look how close Burke is, almost pushing him through Copse there. And he's certainly right there with him through the middle and last second of the track. And again, almost gives him a shot. You can see from this chopper cam just how much that gap opens and closes through the corners. A good exit. He could certainly be within passing range, but right where it counted through Beckett, Scott pulled out about half a car length and just probably got himself out of the opportune range for Wayne Burke to launch one up the inside, or maybe even around the outside. We've seen work today at Stowe, and that off-camber corner does mean that the outside moves can sometimes work. And in the inside of Vale, it can be a very interesting finish to the race, because if Burke is within range, or there or thereabouts, he could launch one with just a couple corners to go up the inside of Vale, and that's a troublesome spot. We've seen in sim racing and in the real world a number of notable crashes there. So this one won't be decided until the closing couple of laps, unless one of these two makes a mistake before then. Closing couple of corners, I should say, sorry.
Burke looked really good in the first couple laps of this stint.
Oh, he's given him a hit.
So good, a little bit of a tap. He has given just a tiny bit of a tap to James Scott, and I think he knows he didn't want to turn him, lets James Scott gather the car up. The two of them will have lost a bit of time for that. My point was going to be that Wayne Burke's really come alive in the last 2 laps or so. We'll get a replay of that one, because Burke was maybe too deep on the brakes, and you can tell me what you see in that.
Yeah, Burke just a little bit too deep, too committed on the brakes, and just got into the right rear. Pretty innocent touch, and just unsettled Scott's car. Scott did just disappear for a second too, which meant Burke checked up just a little bit more to make sure he didn't pass him and do a bump pass, which is good to see. Burke is a very clean racer from what I've seen in the past few weeks commentating the series, which I must say I absolutely love doing. And these guys never fail to put on a show, Dave, and I'm sure you probably would love to jump in for some more with the action you've seen tonight, yeah?
Oh, it depends on what track we're at, but typically these some great racing, you know, it's bumper to bumper. The slipstream is keeps the cars close enough together, but it's not, you know, massively overpowered, as they say. But then also, even in a race length like this with a pit stop, we get a little bit of strategy, we get just a little bit of fuel and tire conservation, and then, you know, just hard racing wheel to the end, like we're going to see hopefully for the lead. Burke is close again, but not close enough into Stowe. But it's into Vale, the next braking zone, where we've seen Burke really close up a little bit. And sometimes he looks like he might think about throwing it down the inside here. So he shows his nose to the inside again, but knows he's too far back. He's trying to get Scott to make a mistake into that corner. And maybe Burke can get a good run off club, and he does.
He does, he's right there. He might be there or thereabout enough close. That did not make sense. To make a move into Village Corner. If he can get a good run through 1 and 2, and I think he has, he's right there. Can he launch one to the inside better than last lap? No, he can't. Decides better of it for now at least as they make their way through into the loop, then into Ancot and then onto the Wellington straight. And this is a great little battle. There's still that fantastic battle further back for 12th place too. And Greg Sharp ahead of Janssen as well in front of them for 10th. So there's a couple of good battles up and down this field. Emerson and Johnstone is another one that hasn't exactly opened itself up since we last saw it. This is Greg Sharp and Steve Janssen. I believe this is a move for Janssen. To the inside at Stowe. He goes and he's not quite at the B-pillar. And then Sharp broke a lot through into Stowe there, maybe more than he needed to, but he got the run off the exit of the corner that he needed as a result and stayed ahead of Steve Janssen. But that's an example of the great exchanges further back in the field as they're still battling. We're back at live pictures now, and Janssen's looking for that run through Ancot and onto the Wellington straight, and he might just about get it. A little bit unsettled was Greg Sharp through the apex of that corner. Will Janssen think about going to the inside of Brooklands? He does. He's later on the brakes. He gets down to the inside, and he should just about complete the move too. Edges him out and gets that spot. Moves back up into 10th place for not the first time today. And that was a great move from Steve Janssen. And look at this again. Scott's going defensive to the outside for the lead of the race. Wayne Burke into Stowe. He's got an overlap, and he's still got one on the exit, but Scott clears him. Will he go aggressive and cover him off? He does. He immediately takes that inside line away for Vale, and Burke again has to go to the outside. Looks for the crossover, try to set himself up for a run through to the inside for Club. He's almost there. He's on his corner panel, but he's not quite there enough, and Scott is able to take that spot away. But now these guys, with just 5 or 6 laps to go, are starting to really fight hard for the lead of this race, and already that gap come down now to 3rd place. It was out to about 4 seconds, down to 3.1 already as a result of just a couple corners of exchanging side-by-side action, and a couple more sequences of that, and Sean Thompson will make this a 3-way fight in an absolute breeze. There's a good fight for 4th place too. Brenton Hobson is coming under all sorts of pressure from Thomas Hinds, who's harassing him, like Wayne Burke is absolutely hounding the back of James Scott's car up front. This is heating up and starting to pressure cooker itself into a climactic and grandstand finish here, getting down to the winding closing stages of this race. And David, this one's anyone's game. Anyone from this top 5 really could still take this if those top 2 keep battling. I think even Brenton Hobson and Thomas Hinds will catch them.
Yeah, exactly. Burke's shown he's not afraid to make a brave move, and he's still got plenty of laps left in his pocket. Come the last 2 laps or so, you could see he might fight even harder to try and keep door-to-door with James Scott to try and get a move done. It is going to maybe give an opportunity to Sean Thompson, but then there's also that great battle 4th and 5th where Hinds is coming at Hobson. This is where Wayne Burke needs to make sure he gets the perfect exit out of here. He needs to somehow trick James Scott into going offline through that section of corners, and this is probably Burke's best opportunity if he can go around the outside of Stowe. He's in the draft and he's closing.
He is, but he's not got quite as good a run as the last time, or so he didn't use it as much as last time. He doesn't want to be the outside of Stowe. It didn't work last time. Both of them sideways coming out of Stowe and heading towards Vale. Scott holds him off for yet another lap, but Scott is being forced to go a little bit defensive. A car's width or so offline into some of these corners, which is hurting his momentum, making him even slower than he is already. A 4.4 that time for Scott, a 4.5 for Burke, but lap times don't really matter for those two. It's more Sean Thompson behind him. He was a 4.5, so he matched him on that lap. He's definitely in with the shout. And look at this, he might be there for Village. Scott's not worried. He drives it out to the left-hand side and opens up that corner. He was very confident that Burke wasn't going to send one to the inside, and great racecraft and knowledge there from Scott to know that there was an opportunity and to take his racing line and use that to his advantage to get a run, because he's got a good run through the loop and out of Aincott and down this straight, and that's allowed him to open up about 4 or 5 car lengths now over Burke.
Yeah, precisely. More car lengths than he's had in just a little bit, and that was great from James Scott to not fall for that trick and to take his normal racing line, knowing that Burke was just a little bit too far back. Here's this battle over 4th and 5th. Hinds had closed up, but he's just been here a car length and so back the last 2 laps or so. He either needs a mistake from Hobson or he needs to pull it out and find just a little bit more pace here, there, or somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And he may too be a little bit aware of that battle out front and maybe hoping they do start battling the next lap or so, and knows that if they get there, they keep their battling up, that they could close up if he isn't doing the similar thing to Brenton Hobson. So that window will close to them in a couple laps though, because when they get to about lap 24 or 25, it's going to be too late for those guys to catch, and Sean Thompson really will be the only one that can capitalise if these two go side by side. And it really looks like James Scott is the one under pressure right now. It's not Wayne Burke. Burke looks to be the aggressor, and he looks to be the quickest of the two out front. And he's shown that he's willing to go the long way round. He's willing to be creative in the way he gets this done, and he's got plenty of time still left to find the perfect way through into the lead of the race. He only needs to do it once. Just get it right once and you're through and into the lead of the race. Then you can drive away if you've got that faster car.
Yeah, Scott's got pretty good pace all around, but there's just a couple places where Burke looks like he's better on the brakes, and that's where you need to be better if you're going to get a pass done. There's no use being the quicker one through the middle of the corner if you can't outbrake them on the way into the corner. So I think that's the trick that Wayne Burke has up his sleeve. If he can get close enough, he can be good on the brakes where it matters. Here's John Emerson trying to come back at Damien Johnstone. Johnstone's got the oldest tyres on the track, and Emerson is trying to put his advantage in that regard to work to get back underneath Johnstone, and he's got him offline through these 2 slow corners. But will he be able to get a good enough run through Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight? Just not quite, even though he should have him on the ropes.
Yeah, he certainly does, and we saw Emerson get by Johnstone earlier on, so Johnstone has found his way back by Emerson while we weren't watching them, and that means that despite those fresher tyres, that advantage has sort of fallen away for John Emerson, and that's something we do see, that the fresher tyres are an advantage, but only for so long. Eventually they do both reach a point where they sort of plateau in the tyre drop off, and we see things like we see now. A driver with 4 lap older tyres is managing to hold off pretty easily. A driver with the fresher tyres, as we go back to the front of the field though, because Wayne Burke has closed back up again, and a good move into Stowe may put him in an opportune spot for Vale. Scott's using a lot of the brake through the apex of the corner, whereas Burke is just able to roll the car through there and not use any of that brake at all. And if he is, it's certainly not enough to register the brake lights, as he was battling to stop that car, and Vale got as close as he would ever dare or like to get to the back of James Scott, but managed to pull it up, and they're going to cross the line, and it will be 4 to go, and we cut away from them. We went to the front, and they did something. John Emerson's gone by on Damien Johnstone up the inside at Stowe, and that's always the way, isn't it, David? It's always when you're not watching. A watched pot never boils.
Yeah, precisely. So great move there from John Emerson to get that move done, and he's now back into 7th place, which is where he started on the grid. Damien Johnstone, though, really not a bad race from him overall, knowing he was down in 16th or so to work his way back into 8th, even though he would have liked 7th. 8th probably not too bad for him. And here's another one of our battles down the order, 14th and 15th. And it's Mulqueen and Hayden Veld, and Veld's starting to put that pressure onto Mulqueen. Is he going to be able to find a way through with just a couple laps left?
Veld made a mistake. He was right up in behind Braden Nash and Aidan Luthwaite a couple laps ago, but he made a mistake through Chapel, got that slowdown that so many people got earlier on in the race, and that allowed Mulqueen to get by him. And now Veld is trying to make up for lost time and get back by him, but he's not quite close enough. He's certainly got the pace of a Mulqueen, it seems, and I mentioned earlier that these two are great friends, and they have a lot of experience racing each other, so that would certainly be an interesting battle to see. But a little bit later on, when they do get side by side, we'll keep an eye on the front though, because we are getting down to the closing stages of this race. I'll keep one eye on this, and I'll keep one eye on the other one too, and I'll update you if anything changes all the way up and down this field, and we'll cut to it. But the lead of the race, this is where it's at. This is what matters. The win. No one remembers who finishes second, unless it's controversial, but no one really remembers who finishes second. It's only and it's always about the winner of the race, the winner of the championship. Only one man can cross that finish line first. At the moment, it's James Scott. They've got just 2 laps to go now when they cross this line, and the advantage for James Scott at the line, it's half a second, and pretty much that's it. 0.505 seconds. The gap between Scott and Burke. Burke lost half a tenth on that last lap, and maybe Scott's found a bit. Maybe Burke's just cooling off those tyres, or he's trying a bit too hard, because we saw how much it was pressuring him at times. And Veld, he's putting that similar Burke-like pressure onto the back of Damon Mulqueen, who's feeling a bit like James Scott now. But this is only for 13th and 14th, further down the field. But it's still a good result, I'm sure, for these 2 drivers. They'll be happy with where they're running in this field, as he might be close enough for a move into Vale. He's not a very aggressive driver, though. I know Mulqueen can certainly be very aggressive with defensive moves too, so contrasting styles for these 2 drivers. Up front, just ahead of these guys, look at Nash and Luthwaite side by side down the old main straight, and Luthwaite chased him all the way down to the middle of the track, and Nash went all the way to the pit wall, and in the end decided better of it. Didn't have enough of an overlap to go to the inside. That was the actual main straight, not the old main straight, actually. They are beginning their second last lap now, as Wayne Burke has fallen off James Scott, it looks like, by quite some margin, 1.9 seconds. I wonder if Burke is short on fuel, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Wayne Burke has run himself a bit short on fumes here, and is having to save a bit more than he'd like to in the closing stages, because he's lost a lot of performance in that one performance racing car. I incorrectly called it a DPR Benmax car earlier. I apologise for that. It is one performance racing, and he's fallen off now. It's 2 seconds, the gap between them, and I think Burke's a bit short, and I think Scott should have this one in the bag.
Yeah, certainly Scott's got the most breathing room he's ever had since the pit stops. Burke's lost 1.5 seconds on this lap, and it's stabilised now. I don't think that's fuel. He's either gone for a slide, gone off track, or picked up a slowdown somewhere, because he's lost 1.5 seconds, and now it's stabilised from halfway around the lap to being about 2-second gap. So that's Burke's shot at a win basically gone, because they're just crossing the line to start the last lap now.
They are. The closest battles behind them are 12th and 13th, and 14th and 15th. Nash and Luthwaite, Mulqueen and Veld. I thought that was a slowdown for Luthwaite in front, but just taking a different line from Braden Nash, who's looking to the outside, looking for a crossover through Stowe. Behind them, no moves for Veld and Mulqueen either. They're only just coming up now to begin their final lap, and look how wide Veld was, and look at Nash as well, trying to go to the outside through Veld. You can't get it done there, and he knows you can't. I think they're side by side behind them. They are. Veld right up on 2 wheels, getting some sponsor time there for Harvey Auto Glasses. As soon as your car in front of him does his absolute best to hold him off, as now Brenton Hobson's coming under all sorts of pressure from Thomas Hinds. Little battle packs exploding throughout this field as the gap out front neutralised itself in 2 seconds. I think Hobson's got enough of a gap for now for the next couple of corners to hold off Thomas Hinds, making their way through Copse for the final time today. And Hobson's got about 3 car lengths. A good run through Magnus and Beckett's, and Hinsby right there for Stowe and Vale. But James Scott is making his way through Beckett's too, so he's just in front of these guys. He's about 2 seconds still in front of Burke. There's going to be no change there, barring mistakes from those drivers side by side behind them. That's Nash to the inside. There's contact, and Luthwaite's going to spin, but he's going to hold on to it on the apex. Will that put him under pressure from Mulqueen and Veld? And Mulqueen's opened up a bit of a gap to Veld too. That's up to about 2 car lengths now, but has come back down since I last spotted that. And Luthwaite now not going to be able to get by Braden Nash, barring mistakes, but out front, he drove a fantastic defence. He's driven a fantastic race. James Scott is going to come around club and going to pick up another win on the Monday night Strength of Field of the iRacing official Supercars Scary Series. Great drive from the Evolution Racing Team driver, James Scott. Wayne Burke on the end only managed second place, and Sean Thompson comes home in third. Hobson picks up fourth ahead of Thomas Hinds in fifth. Newman and Emerson will be sixth and seventh. Johnson eighth. Ben Christensen circulating in ninth place all by himself. Yanton and Sharp are all by themselves too. Let's go back to the battle. For 14th place, it's Mulqueen and Veld. This one's going to come right down to the wire. Will Mulqueen cover at Stowe? He's driving a defensive line. He wants the inside for Stowe. Veld goes to the outside. Through Stowe, he hasn't quite got the run, but he's going to look for the crossover and get the exit that he needs. He's got a pretty good exit. Mulqueen's going to have to go defensive into Vale, and Veld's going to absolutely launch it round the outside. Lave on the brakes, keep the car up there. He makes contact with Mulqueen, gives him a hit on the front, gives him another hit on the front, and he's given about 2 taps to try and get him sorted back out the right way. But unfortunately, both times clipped the back end of Mulqueen's car.
Claire Mason comes through, picks up 2 spots in the final corner there as Mulqueen and Veld try and sort each other out.
Yeah, I was going to say, Claire Mason picked up from both of them. They almost escaped, but that third touch there just cost them the position. Disappointing there from Hayden and disappointing for Damon Mulqueen. They're having a great battle. He just didn't quite have enough of the car up there. Last corner, desperation stuff. And I dare say he may have picked it up from me from our time racing together. So sorry, Damon Mulqueen, for influencing Hayden Veld like that, because we've made moves like that many a times. And you can see here from Mulqueen's perspective, Veld was so late on the brakes. He needed to get that overlap for the inside, but right there, he just wasn't. I tell you what, from that angle, it looked like he might have actually been at that beeper. You can see that awkward bit of contact about 3 or so times, trying to get him pointed back the right way, but in the end, they come across the line, losing the spot in the end. And let's go back and, David, let's take a look at the results. The race winner by 1.8 seconds was James Scott from Wayne Burke, and Sean Thompson came home in third, 5 seconds adrift in the end. Brenton Hobson picked up fourth ahead of Thomas Hinds, who rounded out the top 5 for Ratu Racing. Brad Newman from One Performance picked up 6. One Performance home in second and 6th. I'll be happy about that. John Emerson, Privateer in 7th, and Damien Johnstone for Gone Rogue in 8th place.
9th place goes to Ben Christensen, and then in 10th, Steve Jansen, the biggest mover from 21st on the grid to finish 10th, up 11 spots. Great drive there. Same too for Greg Sharp, who moved up 7 spots to finish 11th. And then Braden Nash, Aidan Luthwaite, Claire Mason, who we saw sneak through to grab 2 sneaky spots on the last lap on the final corner at the expense of our 15th place finisher, Damon Mulqueen, and our 16th place finisher, Hayden Veld.
And then running out the field, starting with the 17th, Kane Hewson, Ashley Ruskin in 18th, and Michael Rosenblatt coming home in 19th place. Tyler Blackburn, we saw in issues earlier on, home in 20th, and then the first of our laps cars, Mihail Letishov, 3 laps down in 21st. Daniel Jenny in 22nd, Craig Jones, Brian Borg, 23rd and 24th, and then running out the field in 25th place. I can't quite see, and David.
Michael Taliancic, a retirement, not completing any laps, so finishing 25 laps down, unfortunately for him.
Well, that was a very good race there, David. We had a bit of everything. We had some strategy in there. We had some interesting battling all the way up and down the field. We had a fantastic finish further back that unfortunately resulted in a contact. A bit of messy racing at some points, but crucially, another week of the iRacing Official Supercar Series and another week of fantastic racing.
I tell you what, Silverstone is great for some of these battles because some of the big overtaking opportunities, like at the end of the Hanger Straight and the end of the Wellington Straight, are, for example, a left-hander then leading into a right. You can defend around the outside, and that gives you the inside, or vice versa. So we saw a lot of door-to-door battles that lasted for a couple corners. We saw the difference in the tyre life come out to play, and we saw a fantastic battle for lap after lap between James Scott and Wayne Burke. James Scott, a well-deserved victor, but Wayne Burke did not make it easy for him. And that's what we like to see. And James Scott can be proud of that victory.
He certainly can. He can be proud, and he can look forward to next week, where we go to Interlagos for week number 9 of this series. That should be a fantastic race too. Another track where overtaking is definitely possible, where slipstream will be a big factor. And where strategy will play a big part. Looking a little bit closer than that, we have tomorrow night on SimSpeed TV, Just Send It, week 12. Don't think we've quite got the car and track announcement for that one yet. On Wednesday night, back on the iRacing Esports Network, and we have actually announced it, just found out it is the MX5 at Interlagos, and that'll be a very much a slipstream fest, that one. Wednesday night, Sprint Series Australia by Epiroc, thanks to Epiroc, is at Phillip Island. And then we go to Lime Rock on Thursday for the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Friday night, AOSC, back on the iRacing Esports Network. Big couple of days coming up for SimSpeed TV on the network. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let us know what you thought, and make sure you tune in because we're going to have some great racing all week long and into the future. But for tonight, from myself, Ryan Jones, from David Haynes alongside me, and from Jake Kennedy in the director's booth, as he so often is, and from all of us, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?